Thanks, Felicia. Hey guys, happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining our workshop today. I'm just gonna hit my buttons here. All right, and so you got a really cool project today. One of my favorite, most meditative, relaxing stitches is a regular even count herringbone stitch where we mix up the sizes and we embellish the side. And then I added a little jazz at the end where we can create a button loop. And the button loop closure is really the star of the show today because it's one, although we've taught herringbone a lot before, we've never really taught how to do one of these kind of closures. And these are super versatile. And when you get the hang of it, you can very easily do this in all your designs. I have one on today that I did many months ago now that has so much sparkle, and it just, the button loop makes it so that the beads go all the way around your wrist continuously without any gaps. And it's actually really easy to put them on. That's another bonus. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump to the mat and just show you all the stuff that I've got out here. And so as I was saying before, this is an any beads design. Herringbone stitch can be done with any beads. You can do it with all just one size. You can embellish the sides or not, depending on what you like. You can mix up your sizes, which is what we're going to show off today. And then the fun part, creating these little customizable for sizes, different size buttons. You can make all different kinds of sizes. So I've got the buttons here that are in the handout. These are the ones that I found in the sewing section at Michael's. And so I've got one ready to go for us to use today. And then I also found these, they're a little smaller, like just a tiny bit smaller, but I was going to use those to finish up our Easter design. This was one that I thought would be cool for, the colors are pretty bright, so easy to see. And I was really feeling these colors for this season. So this one might be a good one to show off. And then last but not least, I have another earth tones colorway that I was working with. I literally just made this one like last night. And it gives you an idea of like, once you get this figured out, how fast it can go. That said, even if you have lots of experience beading, but especially if you're one of our beginners today, this is one where I'm going to be using some jump aheads, and I'm going to be going slightly faster than it would be convenient to follow along and work together. You would need like a 6-hour workshop to work together on one of these. They do take a while. So to get it all into our 2-hour class, to be able to show you all this stuff, I might have to go a tad bit fast, but the best part is there's a replay. There's a PDF that shows all of the steps that we've got here. So you don't have to memorize anything. It's all here. And you'll have the replay to refer to indefinitely as you work on these bracelets in the future. All right, so I'm just going to dive in so we make sure we get to all the stuff. Just to talk really quick about the beads. I have used a combination of size 11, size 8, and size 6 seed beads. So in the main design, we used the Hawaii mix, which is a size 6 seed bead. We used some opaque black 8/0. And then we used like a hematite steel 11/0. And that's going to be a little hard to see for the demo, even though it's a gorgeous design in person. The colors they're a little too close to really stand out. So that's another reason I came up with our Easter flow, was it's got lots of brights. And so for this one, again, we're using some size 8. And that's a bead we're going to start with. I'm going to build a little bib part here. And I might in class today switch to a turquoise just because it's even easier to see. So I had that set aside just in case. Sometimes I have to see it on the camera just to kind of get a feel. And then it's embellished on the side with this color, which is a transparent aqua. And that again is going to stand out a lot more against this bead. So we'll do our demo in these colors. I feel like that'll be really easy to see. And then you're going to want to have size 6 seed beads. So go crazy, go to town, get whatever colors you want. You'll be able to make any combination of colors work that you like. This design used 5 colors, and I just ombre'd them from light to dark and back down again. So you lay them out in a row and you pick them up 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you get to the 4th one, you just move back down and just keep going up and down to get this look. You can do that with 5. You can do that with 7, 8, 9 colors, however many you want. Whatever order you lay them out in, just stay consistent and you'll get some kind of flow like this. That can be ombre, it can be any kind of color block that you like. This one has like a stripy look to it. Looks like a decorated egg. And of course on this one, I only had 5 colors for this one. So it's a bit more like the original. The colors don't really stand out as great on the camera right now, but you can see there's some really lustery finishes going on here. I've got like a it's almost like a lavender, and then there's turquoise, and then there's a bunch of transparents and silver lined for some depth and color. I've got a metallic running down the side. This one's going to be really stunning in a, you know, in a clear photo, and it's ready to put a button on. So we're also going to talk about sizing today. That was another thing I forgot to mention. So besides the beads, again, that's size 6, any colors you want, size 8, size 11s. In addition to that, you're going to need thread. I'm going to be using Wildfire in 0.006. And then you're going to need some beading needles. I'm just using a size 10, size 12 beading needle. I think, let's see, just referring to the handout over here, all of that should be here in the handout. So you don't have to memorize this either. You can just take a look. You can use any button you want. This one is 15 millimeters. I'll probably demo with one that's a smidge smaller, 12 millimeters. The sizes are indicated on them, and you can easily adjust the counts for these buttonholes. So any button you have is going to work just great. I'm going to show you how to size it, not necessarily just giving you counts. And then scissors, beading mat, we're showing all that here. But one optional item that I just want to quickly show, we're not going to use it right away, but as we get to the second part of the hour, I'm going to pull this out and show how I figure out sizing if it's not for me. If it's for me, I just put it on my wrist and then check it out, right? But if it's not for me, we can use this to figure out how to make it for other sizes. Okay, so for thread, how much thread to cut? It is kind of up to you. You can cut a lot. You can cut, like, I think in the handout I said 120 inches, but if that's too unwieldy to work with, cut less and we'll add thread. This design, you're going to end up adding thread regardless. So it's a good thing to learn. We're going to cover it. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a ladder stitched row with just one row of beads. And we're going to leave about a 15-inch tail that we're going to use later to put the button on. The button will go on the starting side. And from there, let's start with that. And then I'll bring the handout back over as we go, just to make sure everything makes sense. Okay, so here's my thread. And let's get a good length going here. For me today, I'm just doing a wingspan. And I'm doing that because I don't want to hit my camera. So we'll be adding thread with this one. And these scissors do a great job on Wildfire. And last but not least, I am going to grab a pair of chain nose pliers. If you don't have chain nose pliers handy, what you can do is you can use the side of a seed bead tube. I want to show that trick just in case I'm finding my chain nose here. Here we go. The trick with chain nose is to take the end of the Wildfire and just flatten it so that it becomes pretty flat like paper. And that's going to make getting through our needle easier. Got my needle here. If for some reason you don't have chain nose handy, just take a seed bead tube, get a flat surface going. This doesn't work as well as the chain nose pliers, but it in a pinch can do quite nicely. And on a surface that's hard, but you don't mind scratching it, just go ahead and press down and pull the thread. And that'll flatten it out for you. All right. So let's get that needle on there. And let's get some beads going. There's lots of stuff on my mat today. So many cool things to show you guys. And let's get this keyboard tray out of the way. Okay, so I'm just going to go through ladder stitch really quick. I know a lot of you guys know this already, but it's good to see it. It's good to see a refresher. But we're going to start by picking up 2 seed beads. And we're going to bring those down. Remember, we're leaving about a 15-inch tail. So I'll take this tail here. This is the tail side. And I'll just pull that out until I've got about 15 inches or so. And then just go ahead and come back up through the first bead that you strung of those 2. So we're going to come back up through the first bead. Pull tight. And they'll sit side by side like that. And that's what you want. It's perfect. So let's come back down. And then I'm going to go back up. This is reinforcing. And then we can use our tail and our working thread to tighten all that up. So from here, I'm going to leave the tail in position because the count of this is going to be 8 across. And it typically when you reinforce, you would have come back up through this one and worked in this direction. I'm going to just work from this direction because I want my tail to stay out of the way. So that's what I'm doing here. And it just kind of helps me to not have to weave the tail around later after we've got it built. And so from here, we're going to pick up another size 8 seed bead and then just come back up through the first one. Remember, this is all going to be replay. So following along and watching at the same time is really hard. So if you're new and ladder stitch is new, don't worry. This is something that you'll be able to see again and again in the video.
Hey, Danielle, it's Carmi.
Hey.
Just a very quick question. Are you starting with the 8-0 or 6-0?
We're using size 8 right now.
Size 8?
Yeah, the size 8. So what we're doing right now is we're just building that first little bib part. Let me show you on one that.
And that was the second question. Which side are you starting on, or does it matter?
It does naturally, it naturally matters that this will be the bib that you build first. And then this will be the side we put the button on. When you come up here, this is ready to put the button closure on. We're going to build a row of 8-0 and then build one side of the buttonhole, the other side, and then join at the top. So we naturally.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we're using 8-0 right now. We're going to be having 11-0 out in just a second here. So you see these 11-0s on the side, but we're just building these rows here. Okay. And so let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and grab this sample back up here. So we added our third bead in the ladder. We need a total of 8. So there's my third bead. And so the way you add each bead is you just pick it up and you loop around through the last bead and then reinforce it. So I'm going to reinforce. And reinforcing, of course, always optional. You could just keep going. I like to reinforce because it makes this row super, super straight. And then makes it look very polished when your final bracelet is built. It looks really cool this way. But that said, it might straighten out just a hair when you do your first row. So totally up to you. You can try both. But I'm going to reinforce today just because it makes it easier to see, I think. See, right now it's kind of standing like that. So I'll help it kind of move sideways. We'll come back up through that bead. Another thing I'm doing is I'm pinching pretty hard on the stitches I can get a hold of, like these part right here. See, it's still a little bit wonky, but that little trip back through makes it so good. And for anyone new, that's kind of the secret to seed beading in general. It's like a lot of brand new folk, they start and they're like, hang on a second, why doesn't mine look like that? And 90% of the time, it's just that they reinforced it. And that's all there was to it. But nobody ever tells you that. So many times I tried when I was learning from magazines initially. I'm like, what? Mine doesn't look like that. What? There, see that extra trip through. So how many do we have now? You got 5. Here's number 6. There we go. Okay, so there's 6 beads. I'm going to double check that. I can't count while live, so there we go. We come back up through this one. So this is going a little fast. It's working at my typical speed, but you guys will get the hang of it. And then another tip that I was going to say is if this is at all tricky, it is okay to build a 2-stack, which is how we started the beginner level class that we did for herringbone. Back in September of last year, we did a whole like beginner series, and this stitch will still work even if you start with a double stack, and those can sometimes be easier to keep in a row. So 3, 5, 6, 7. Here's our 8th bead. There we go. right, so there's my laddered row. And it's pretty good. It's not super wonky. I reinforced the whole thing. And that's just the step one that you got to do to build that. And again, if you want to do that with a 2-stack, go for it. That'll work fine. We'll talk a little bit about placing the embellishment. It'll be different for you if you do a 2-stack, but it'll work still. So here's our row of laddered stitched 8 O's. Okay, so we're going to start building the herringbone part now. So we're switching stitches. We just finished that. And we're here. We're going to add 2 beads at a time and come up and down through the laddered row that we just made. So adding 2 beads and coming down, and then we're going to do our first embellishment over here. So let me get that started first. Get the 11 O's ready. Size 11 right here. Then a pretty purple color. And now we're going to just pick up 2 size 8 seed beads. And from where we are here, we're going to go down through the second bead in from where you're exiting. So just come down through the second here and pull your thread, and you'll have side-by-side beads like that. Herringbone causes the beads to sit pointing inwards toward themselves. That's the design, and that's the beautiful look that herringbone creates. So don't sweat it if where you're doing that and you see that they're not sitting flat. We don't want them to. They're going to actually look very cool like this in just a few more rows. So here's 2 more. And we're exiting from the 3rd bead, right? So we went down through this bead, and then we came up through this bead right here. So we're going to pick up 2 more and then just come straight down through the 4th bead. So sometimes you'll get something like that. Just help it. First row is always the most tricky. Just help them sit side by side like that. Okay, let's come up through the next bead in the row here. Right up to the next one. Pick up 2 more beads. And we're going to go down through the next bead in that laddered row. And I'm going to help it kind of sit side by side. There we go. I guess I have 1 more to add. So let's come up through the next one here. We'll grab 2 more and through the last, down through the last bead here. All right. And so in the handout, it looks in this orientation like that. So we're going to embellish the side really quick. So let's pick up, now we're going to switch to a size 11 just for a second. We're going to pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. And just take a quick look over here. We're going to do what's called a step up. So we're exiting from this bead here, the bottom bead from the laddered row. And we want to be heading in that direction out of this bead. So super simple. I work with my right hand, so I just flip this work to be on this side for me, a little easier. And I'm just going to come up through this bead. And when you do that, the little 2 that we picked up, the 2 11s, are going to just sit like that. Really cute. All right, so let's build 1 more row. I'm switching back to 8 O. Got 2 8 O seed beads here. And we're going to go down just through this next bead here. The next bead in our row. And help them if you need to, so that they sit like that. We'll come up through the adjacent bead in a row. Here's 2 more size 8 seed beads on the needle here. Down through the next bead. So we're always coming up through one, going down through the one next to it, and then coming up through the one next to that. For a total of 4 columns added. A column is each of these right here. So we'll come up through here. And we'll pick up 2 more. And last but not least, we got this last column to work here, going up through the adjacent bead. Here's 2 more size 8 seed beads, and we'll come down through this bead. Now, so I want to take 1 second and talk about embellishing. So we put these 2 11-0s on the side. If you would like it to match, meaning if you'd like the design to have the embellishment on the same row every time, embellishment here, and have the same, have them line up for just the bib part. When we get up here, we won't need to worry about it anymore. But just for building this section, you can go down an extra bead to align that. You'll only have to do it every other trip, right? And I'll show you that. We're going to build the whole thing. So we're going to come down through this first bead here. And of course, what you would do is you would pick up 2 size 11s and step up. But if you, of course, if you want to match what we've got going on this side, go ahead and go down 1 more bead. And I'm just doing that because if I look over here, these are hugging my first row. So here's my next 2. Now I've got size 11 here. 2 size 11s, hopefully not 1. There's 2. And now I'm going to step up through both of those beads, right? So I'm going to go through the one above, but I'm going to continue through the one that I just added, which is this one right here. If I can get through that one. That trick right there just causes you to have some symmetry, but it's completely optional. You don't have to worry about it. If it's at all stressful, don't worry about it. You can just do your step up from the bead that you went down and it'll work just great. Also, if you're working with a 2 column, this same trick will work to align you for that. So we've got 1 more row to build, and then we're going to start adding in different sizes. In my hand, what you'll see me doing constantly is flipping my work, meaning we were here, and then I picked it up and I flipped it this way because I tend to like to work from my left to my right because I'm right-handed. If that works for you, go ahead and do that. If not, you can work both directions. I think it's just, it's kind of personal preference, like whatever works for you. And for this pattern, left and right is not important. So that's super handy. So there's 2 size 8s down to the next bead. And we'll come up. Here's 2 more. Just helping them out so they sit side by side. 2 more. Let's help those go where they need to go. And the last one here. All right, so on this side, I'm going to just do my step up regular. Meaning I'm not going to have to travel down through any extra beads because this side is the first incident of adding it for this side, right? So just going to step up from 1 bead to the next, adding those 2 really pretty embellishments. So let's see where we are. Let's check back with our handout. We did all that. And what we've got now is this. Try to put them side by side so you can see it. So we'll have our 2 embellishments here on this side, 1 on this side, and this is where we left off. So now we're transitioning to the part where we add the size 6/0s in between each one. So starting here, let's grab a bright yellow. It's going to be nice and easy to see. And depending on what colors you're working with, I'm going to go ahead and lay mine out. What I like to do for how to set this up, because you'll be doing this a while, this is the bulk of the journey here. Go ahead and lay your beads that are your 6/0s up here, and then have your 11/0s and your 8/0s, which you're going to be accessing every row, basically. Have those be in front. So here's my color 1. And let's go with Groovy Grape for color 2, my son's favorite color. And let's grab Santa Fe for my color 3. For my color 4, I'm going to use maybe like this maybe, well, let's see what's mine. Let's go for something brighter. Let's do this cobalt. And like I said, any colors you want. You can alter them dark to light. That's what I did with the Hawaii mix. I went from the lightest color, which is clear, all the way up to the darkest color, which is the hematite. But it doesn't matter. Anything you want to do is going to work great. Let's see. Last but not least, let's grab. How about super fuchsia? That's gonna stand out pretty good. And there's my color 5. All right. So I'm going to start with yellow. Yellow's my color A here. Let's move it so we're centered. All right. And remember, we're going to have a replay of this. So I know I'm going a little quick, but I feel like we're going to have some extra time too if there's questions about any of these steps. And also, we're going to be doing a repeat of this step lots of times, so you'll get to see it quite a few. But for starters, just go ahead and pick up one size 8 and one size 6. And it's important from here on out, the whole time. We're going to be picking up that 8/0 first, 6/0 second. And it's going to be in that order no matter which direction you're heading. Every time, you're always going to be picking up the 8/0 first and then the 6/0. And that's important because you want them to stack back and forth, right? So even though we're picking them up in the same order, they are alternating in placement. And I'll show you that here as we go. So there's my 8/0 and my 6/0. So let's come up through the next one. I'm going to work all lemon yellow or lemon drop, as this one's called, for the first row. So I picked up that 8/0, 6/0, and you'll have to help it a lot for this first row, but you'll be really pleasantly surprised as you get going. You don't really have to help them as much later. They tend to they settle really nicely once you get going. Here's my next one, 8/0, 6/0. Down through the next one here. And we'll go up through the next one. Picked up an 8/0, then a 6/0. Okay, so one thing to think about, we just did our first row of 6/0. It looks gorgeous. I need to do a step up and I want to embellish my step up. So let's look at where my last one was. My last one is right here. It's like hugging row 3, right? So I want to do my step up from that bead. So I'm going to go down one more bead. Again, this is optional. It's going to work no problem, even if you just step up right here, no problem. But I'm going to go down here so that they hug the same rows. And this is the last time you'll have to do a step like this. All the rest of them are they're just going to hug the 8/0 that you are ending on. I'll show you that as we go. Here's my 11. And let's come up through both beads above. And there we go. Super cool. So that one is all built. It's all good. I'm going to flip my work just for me. So, because it's easier for me to work that direction. So I got that ready. And I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to move up to my color B. Still need to pick up an 8/0 first. Then I'm going to pick up my first new color. And so these are all 6/0 up here. All 6/0. 8/0, 11/0. And we're just going to go down through the 8/0 here. So this is all we're going to be doing now for the bulk of the body of the bracelet. And we'll do a bunch of rows, and then of course I won't be able to work the entire length of the sample, but we'll get a few, quite a few in so you can see it grow. So I think it does help. Again, here's an 8/0 and the 6/0. Each time you go down through an 8/0, and you come up through the 6/0 that's next to it. Oops, there we go. Here's 8/0 and 6/0. And then one thing I want to just quickly mention as I'm going here, these first few rows, they're going to feel like they're not stacking right to you. I'm kind of forcing them to do all of this what you're going to feel like they're doing is you're going to feel like they're doing this on you, like they want to scrunch because you're adding a bigger size on top of a smaller size. But it evens out. It feels really weird for the first 3 or 4 rows. And then after a while, the weight of the rows above it, they make it all just flatten out, no problem. So don't let that slow you down. Don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. You're not. It's going to fix itself as you go. So let's keep going. For all the embellishments now that we're going to do from here on out, they're all just going to go on the side of the 8/0 you just went down. Every row is going to end by going down through a size 8 seed bead. And you'll just pick up 2 11/0 and we'll come up through the 6/0 that you just added. And whenever you're doing that, if you want to just pull on the one that is exiting just to tighten it, it can help when you're doing this step ups there. So there's our first step up. Let's do another row, switch colors. And for me, I'm going to flip to work from the other side. I've got a size 8 and a size 6 seed bead. Pull those down. And then we're just coming up through the 6/0 here. And up. And last one. And as far as what tension I'm using, it's medium tight. Maybe even a little tight on the sides. So there's that one. Next, we got to do our step up. So we're going to get 2 11/0s. And we're going to go up through that 6/0 bead. And just kind of hold everything in place. And pull. I notice that's something that I do is I kind of hold everything while I'm doing that step. There we go. Flip again. Let's move to our next color. And I just pulled this color off the wall behind me. It's an accidental amazingness here. Look at that color. It's going to add a lot of texture to the design. I like to mix up the finishes. That's one of the, I didn't do it in the Easter one, but I definitely have been doing that in some of the others where you have one that's got like a cellion, one that's a luster finish, one that's silver lined, maybe a transparent in there, and you'll get a really cool effect. If you have a frosted, throw a frosted in there. That one I pulled out of the glacier mix for the Easter one. But all I'm doing here is the same thing, my mantra of picking up an 8/0, then picking up a 6/0, and just doing that herringbone stitch by going down through the next bead and up through the one after that. Same thing, we just repeat and repeat. Also cool, you'll never really lose your place. It doesn't have a pattern that you can't just glance at and pick up anytime. You can set it down, walk away at any point, and it's not going to be confusing to just pick up and restart. It's another great thing about this project. Here's my 2 11/0. So let's get another one on here. I'm going to go a little faster. And then I'm going to just explain the ombre one more time, and then we'll talk about how I'll check in. We'll talk about how you guys are doing. So let's see, getting one more of these on there. And it's getting easier, subtly so, but getting a little easier to get them to stack as the piece kind of flattens itself out naturally here. I'm still helping them a little bit. You'll see me picking up the 6/0 to kind of nudge them. But it is naturally kind of getting easier, so it'll keep going. Also use your needle just like that. Here's our 2 11/0. and we can step up right there. So from here, what you would do is you would start working backwards. So now you would pick up the 8-0 and move back to this colors in this direction. So we've been going A, B, C, D, E. Now you'll go back to these colors and then just keep moving up and down until you reach the end of your design. And they kind of work out as far as like, if you wanted it to end on a certain color for symmetry, you can add or give a row. It doesn't really make a huge difference in sizing. And I did that with these. So for this one, I really wanted to end on the same color I started. I started with the cornflower blue there. It's like a little periwinkly blue. And I was able to get that to work out where it ended with the same one and gave me the measurement I was going for. With this one that used 5 colors, I was able to do that too. But I added 2 more rows above what I would have normally added. Another way you can play with that to get it to be the length you want is you can make these longer or shorter, these starting bibs here. This one has 5 rows, you'll notice, and this one has 4. Makes no difference. It's going to work out great regardless. And let's see, last and not least, what I did on the original was exactly the 5, and I ended with the pink just like I started. That pink is so bright to me in person, and then on the screen, I'm looking at my screen, the pink kind of disappears. But this is that color. It just like goes away when you put it there. It's really weird. Yeah, so that is the way I did that. Does anyone have any questions about the herringbone stitch part? From here, you just keep going forever and ever. For a while. It does take some time, but it's really fun.
Danielle, the sidebar's been quiet, and I do see some people threading and stitching along. Okay. So the only question that was asked and has been answered is, it looks so big on the screen, but it's probably only about 1.25 inches wide.
Ah,
if you could just tell us yes, thank you.
1.25 inches, spot on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually my opinion, the perfect cuff. Like, there it is on my wrist. And the one I'm wearing is made with 11-0 and 8-0 instead of 8-0 and 6-0, right? But this has more columns. And that was another thing I didn't mention in the beginning, is starting with 8 columns will give you 4 columns on each side when you do the button closure. But you could do this with just 2 columns. You could do this with more than that. The only trick is it wouldn't work with an odd count of columns. An odd count of columns wouldn't give you the center point you need. I feel like there's still a way you could kind of make it work out, but this is the most intuitive, is to give yourself an even number of columns and then go from there. Okay, so let's see.
Danielle, I wanted to let you know that Marguerite has commented, and so have others. They love the way the embellishment is hiding the step up.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's making the people who don't like their thread showing very happy.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course you can do the turn to hide your thread, but I've always very much loved not doing that because of the flow. See, if you can when you look at these pieces, they just move. They have so much gorgeous movement. And at least in my experience, when I do the turns without my thread on the outside, they tend to kind of do this to my side beads, where they turn in just a little bit. This, no problem. And it's faster than doing that turn. So yeah, definitely embellishment is the win. So I want to talk about adding thread really quick, and then we'll move on to the button closure. Does that sound good? That's probably going to be the bulk of what we want to cover. So from here, let's, for example, let me just throw these rest of these beads for this row on very speedy. I do recommend before you add thread, get yourself to the end of a row. You don't have to, but it helps you keep track of where you are. And it also is the step up kind of locks in your thread so it's not as wobbly. So it's another great way, because you're going to have to abandon a strand for a second while you add the new one. Let's go up through here. And our last blue here. And they've just reached this point here at, what am I at, row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, row 6, where I just had my first one pop in place that doesn't need help. You'll start noticing that row 6, 7, 8, it'll start getting so smooth. So I was already getting there at this piece. So let's pretend my thread's super short and I need to add more. Okay, so let's grab some more thread. Cut a good length that's comfortable for you. And we're going to do very quickly just some of the same steps that I was doing before to make threading that needle easier. So that is grabbing those chainless pliers. I'm going to flatten the end there. Grab a new needle and thread it. Okay, so here's my new strand. Notice I just left my old one hanging out, and that's how I do all my thread adds. But what I need to do now is get over here with my new strand and then just carry on from that point. So this is also a stitch marker. It's showing you where you left off and it's where you're aiming for with your new strand. A really good way to lock in your thread quick is to use those step ups. So I like to just come in from the side. And I just went through, of course, go through any beads you like, because following your existing thread path is all we're doing here. But here's one way. I mean, you can come in through these 3 and leave a little bit of a tail. This is going to be our motion tester. Once it stops moving, we've got a good weave in. Come up through your embellished side here. And what this is doing is it's giving me turns. Turns are good because turns lock in thread. Coming through my 6-0. And let's just go through the row. And as you go through it, you can go through 1 bead, you can go through 2, do whatever you want. All of these little squigglies, see already just from that, watch what happens when I pull this strand. I can probably get that one to move, but actually not really. Even just with that, it's locked in really good. So all I really need to do is just travel back over here. So I'm just covering the existing thread path through a row. Sorry about that. My tension is so good. I can't even get in that bead. All right. One more. Okay. And then I'm going to go through that step up that we just made here. So I'm just traveling through these existing beads. Haven't added anything new. And now my new strand is where my old one was. I'll go over here and trim what remains of that new add. I push down, pull up with the scissors, get rid of that strand. And here we go. New threads where I need it to be. What I would do from here is I would build 3 new rows with my new strand. And then I would just leave this out of the way. It'll get in your way a little bit, but just kind of maybe pin it to your mat, get it to sit to the side. You could also do something where you kind of pinch it as you're working and hold it out of the way, whatever works for you, but work 3 more new rows and then bring that old strand up into those new rows the same way we brought in this new one as we were going. And once you've gone through a couple of rows, just trim it. You know, and do that thing where you kind of go up and down a few times and it should be good. But I'm just doing this to show the awesomeness of it just kind of working out. This is a very, very relaxing project. Like it's one of those things that once you've got it, it's completely satisfying to see it grow, and the stitching is not hard. So it just becomes a second nature relaxation that you can listen to some music or listen to like a podcast or something while you're working on it, and then have something wonderful to show for your hour, like it would just be. So there's 1 row. I would do 2 more, and then I would take this strand and then just start going through it, trim it, and you're good. So that's it. That's it for adding thread. Super, super easy. We're at 47 minutes. I was wondering, let's do our break early, because I do think the button closure is going to take a real bulk of the hour. Like it's going to be the longest part of our demo. And then we still have to put the button on. So let's, seems like a good spot to go now. Do you think, Carmi?
I
So
agree,
here,
Danielle.
yeah,
Let's take a 2 or 3 minute comfort break. If
okay,
anybody'd like to get a bottle of water or a quick trip to the washroom.
sounds good. And then we'll just jump back in with finishing up this one. I'm just going to clean up my mat really quick. Hey, Carmi, are you there?
I am.
What do you think of the colors? It looked so bright to me before. Are you feeling like it's not bright enough? I have a backup. I've got.
Yeah, on my screen, the 2 purples are very similar.
Okay, we'll do this one. They're the same, so it's okay.
You know, we'll fall in love with your new color palette.
Yeah, I actually have those tubes sitting in front of me, so I can share them.
Danielle, quick question while we're waiting. The bracelet that you're wearing today that you made with smaller beads, what size beads did you use for the edges?
Good question. Size 15. I used some 15s.
Aha. Everybody in the sidebar caught that.
Yeah, you can easily scale up and down designs like that. Like you could even do this with size 2s instead of the 6s, and then your embellishments on the side would be 8-0, right? Like we've done that before with some of our other stitch ups, like we show them all scaled. It's fun. It's kind of a cool
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, yeah. But this one is, and I did a lot of different stuff here. Like my bib is really short, and I did stripes instead of, like, there's no ombre. All of this is the same color, and then I just did, instead of row color blocking, I did column color blocks. And you can't even see it here, they're hidden, but in real life you can see that the center's pink and the side is blue and the edge is green.
Wow.
A little harder to keep track of than the row by row, but still, like, it kind of works out. Like,
yeah, it's gorgeous.
I love this one. And I have another one to show. I was going to show at the end, but you can do flowers, stick flowers in there, that buttonhole in there. This is old. I made this many years ago, but
It's in such great shape.
It's been worn a lot too, so I'm quite surprised that it's held up as well. All right, so I've got all the beads I need handy. I'm gonna push this one aside here. It's really good, but just not gonna be able to see those colors, I'm afraid. Where did I put that last little sample I had? Well, here, I'll grab one of these needles then. Okay, and gold. Gold is going to be much better to see. Yeah, there we go. Let's do that. Okay, so how's everybody doing? Is it okay to get started again? Give me a shout if, yeah, I've got some thumbs up. Okay. All right, I'm diving back in. I have switched to a sample that I worked ahead. It's a little darker in color. But again, this one is just a further along version of what we were doing. It just kind of repeated myself over and over and over again. This looks like an indie sweater. Really cool ones. I'll share these colors at the end if you guys like them. And we're going to start building the buttonhole. So again, you don't have to memorize this because it's a few steps, you know, there's a lot going on. But the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to switch back to using only 8/0. So we're done with our 6/0s now. We could put them away and clean up our mats and just go to 8/0 here. I'm going to do one normal row that just puts 8/0s on top of my last row and has a little step up on the edge. And then we'll check back in with our drawing here. So let's pick up our 8/0s. Same way we've been doing the whole time with our stitching. We're just going to pick up 2 beads. And again, these are size 8. We've switched back to just using only size 8. And what'll happen is they're going to be a little bit like they're going to sit kind of funny, but don't sweat it. Like I was saying before, they all kind of even out when you put the row on top of them. Here's 2 more. Up to the next one. Sorry about that. I keep hitting the camera. Okay, and here's the next one. I've got quite a bit of working thread going here, so it's pretty long, but this next set is going to take a little bit of thread. So I've got quite a bit on my needle here. Here's my last 8/0 column. And there we go. Okay, so just 8/0s. We just put a bunch of 8/0s on there. Let's do a step up using these 2 11s. This is a metallic gold that I'm using now. I switched over to that color just for some variety. So there's our embellishment. And from here on, let me just lay it down the way that it is in the handout. Now we're going to do something just a little different. It is the same thing we've been doing, but we're going to start building just 2 columns only. So right now we're here, we're exiting from that bead and we're going to just add 2, 2, and then I'm going to keep building like that. On my step ups that I do on the inside, I'm not going to add 11/0. The ones I do on the outside, I'm going to add 11/0 for those. That way our button won't have anything to bump into when we're putting our button on and off. We want it to not have the little 11/0s sticking out here. So let me show you that. It'll go pretty fast because it's only got 2 columns to work now. And we're just going to work that first side. And then I'm going to talk about measuring and actually, I apologize. Before putting the button closure on, I've wanted to show you how to know you've got the right size, and I jumped ahead on that. So let me just quickly talk about that. We brushed on it in the beginning, but what you're going for here in measurements. So how do you know when to stop? Let's say you've built your whole design and you get to like here and you need to know, hey, like, is it long enough? How do I know when to stop? Well, if it's for you, put it on and then take a look. When it can connect comfortably, this beadwork connects with that beadwork, you've got it. That's where we're going for. from everything from here on out that you build is going to overlay what we've done so far. So you do have to stitch a little more than you would have to otherwise if you were using a regular clasp. So this one is a little extra stitch work, but once it connects like that for you, you got it. If it's for somebody else and you're trying to figure out will it work for them, go ahead and bring out your board. And you want to just go ahead and place it onto the design board. And make sure that it connects like that. You can also use one of those mandrel style measures. All of those things are going to work just fine. But yeah, another thing you could do if you're just using a ruler and you're measuring it flat is measure it to the amount you're going for. And another thing to note about cuffs, we talked a little more detail about this during my bracelet sizing class that we did, but cuffs are wide. And Carmi mentioned earlier, 1.25 inches in width. So it's going to be, it needs to be big enough to go up further on the arm. So when you're doing a measurement for someone, if they tell you, hey, like I wear a size 7 bracelet, make theirs 7.25 for this to get to this spot. Just add about 1/4 inch. And that way it'll fit higher on the arm, right? 7.25, 7.5, maybe just give it a little extra so that it fits comfortably, because we're going to have to be able to get a button on and do all of that. So that's one way to tell. I would suggest if you've never made one of these before, make one for yourself first, and then you'll have a really like a much easier time kind of figuring out how to make it for someone else, if that makes sense. So switching back to where we were here, we had started building, we built a row of 8 out. And now I'm starting to build my next row. I started just normal, just like we would start any other row. I built my first 2 here for my column. And I'm just going to build another column here. Here's 2 more. Bring those down. All right. And so what I'm going to do different from what we've been doing is instead of carrying on and finishing all that, I'm just going to step up through the size 8C bead I just added. So tighten this by pulling here, pinch all of it, and then just go ahead and bring that up. All right. So yeah, your thread's going to show here on the inside. No one's going to see that. It's okay. And it's on the inside of the button loop. So it's definitely going to be completely invisible when it's buckled. And what I'm doing now is I'm building the next row. Just with 8 0. Just going to pick up another set, still doing basic standard herringbone. I'm just working back and forth in what is now a 2-column design for now. So there's those. And I'm still doing that thing where I'm flipping it in my hand just so I can comfortably work with my right hand. Here's my 2-11-0. And as I was saying earlier, we're going to embellish the outside, but not the inside. Okay, and so we're going to get to a point for now, just make some rows. Don't worry too much about the height yet. Most people's buttons are going to be at least taller than 6 rows. I've made what is going to be my 3rd row here. So go ahead and just make like 6 rows, and then we'll start talking about, well, how many rows for my button. There we go. Regular step up, no beads added, no embellishment here. I'm gonna flip it. Come down through here. Here's 2 more. And I'm on the outside, right? So I am going to embellish because I'm on the outside for this step up. Let's do another row back and forth here. And now let's start talking about sizing. Okay, so from where we are, I know I'm going to need some more rows, but I'm going to at least start thinking about it. Got about that much. I'm going to do my step up. catch on stuff. Okay, so let's grab a button. And there's my button. So comfortably, I would like this to have a row or two above in height from what I've got going here. So let's look at the picture that is in the handout. I've showed a picture here at kind of what I did for the sample. You see how I've got about a row and a half taller than what I had going from before. That's what I'm going to do here. But just to give you an idea, if you were working with a different button, that will be a different measurement for you. So let's grab one of these smaller ones here. So this is what is this one? This is a 12 millimeter. So that one I wouldn't have to do as much for. That one's pretty good. This one I'll have to do a little taller. So depending which one you want, I feel like this one, I don't know, which color do we like? What do you guys think? It's a tough call. I like them both. This one's faster to make, so we'll go with that one for class. I'm going to try to make it about 2 rows higher than this one. So let's do 2 more rows. If I was working with the other one, we were to be talking about more like 4 to 5 more rows. Maybe 4, I don't know. Well, we'll see. You have to just kind of look at it. And so here's this one. And I'm on the outside. So here's my embellish. Let's get that on there. And then we'll take another look really quick. Okay. That will probably work pretty well. We could give it 1 more row if we wanted. It really is up to you. And it's kind of like too big is better than too small. That's where I'm going with this. So if you were to make your button loop a little too big by a row or something, that's better than making it too small by a row. This one very comfortably slides, but the more extra rows you add that are unneeded, the bigger your gap when wearing it's going to be here. If you make that too big, because what it'll do while it's being worn is it'll ride to the furthest point in this direction. So you'll have a little air here. That's okay. Again, better than not having enough, better than not being able to clasp it. But when I wear this one, I'm going to put it on really quick so you guys can see it. It kind of does that on me. Can I see that little bit of air? Yeah. Does it bug me? No, I don't care. It looks great. My beads are going all the way around. It's very easy to put on. This is a high dome button. It's got a little bit of puffy to it. This one's a little flatter. Take that all into account. If you feel like you have a high dome, go ahead and give yourself 1 more row. Some buttons have really high domes, like some of those ornate check glass ones. You want to make sure that you can cover that. So err on the side of extra. Don't worry about it if I think this is going to be good for us here. I think this is going to work great. Okay.
Danielle?
So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, may I ask a question on behalf of Sharon?
Yes,
she's
please.
made these buttonhole closures before, but they don't stay closed. Do you have any suggestions?
I do, but it's make it as tight as you can without making it too tight. And I got to admit, it's definitely on the tricky side, and I struggle with the same thing. It's easier with shank buttons, personally, I think, because it gives you, if you can find a button with a shank that's about the height of the beads, it'll enable you to go a little tighter. I think that helps. But like, for example, this one doesn't have a shank. And so I made a shank by putting seed beads. So that's another thing. We're going to talk about that when we get to this side. Is what if I don't have a shank? You make one. You make one with seed beads. I'm trying to think if there's any other tips I can give you. So another tip if you see what I did with this button here, I just came straight out of the work with a bunch of seed beads, and this one does have a shank, but I still made it a little even taller.
That's great, Danielle. Thanks for the extra tips. And even Carol just added a point that it does help if you do use a larger button.
I was about to say a larger diameter might be better. For like one of these is more likely going to come loose. And let's take a look and see. And that's another one that had some air, but honestly, this one's never come off on me either. And I'm not sure why. It just always kind of worked for me. But they all kind of have a pretty good diameter going relative to the size of the buttonhole. So maybe that's the ticket, is just getting that, threading that needle, right? Getting it to be kind of not too big, but not too small. All right, so let's see. I hope that helped, Sharon, because yeah, that's a good question, and it's like, it doesn't have a very amazing answer, but it's kind of like, yeah, try it. There is a point where we can, I mean, it's a pain, but you can deconstruct after you get the button finished. If you put it on and it's moving around on you, we can do like one row and test it, right? And if it doesn't work, sadly, you'd have to undo one side, right? But doable, totally doable. Okay, so I want to talk about where you might end up and how you might have to weave around. It really kind of depends what row you ended up on. And if you're trying to get the perfect height and for some reason yours ended over here, no sweat, just weave over here. Your goal is to get yourself into position on this side. However you can get there, that works for you. Just following your existing thread path. And you could start from the middle. I just kind of felt like it was easier to start on the side. But that's not a hard, fast rule. If you wanted to weave over here, exit from that bead and start building like that, that's going to work too. It's no problem. So just something to think about as you're working with it. What I'm going to do here for us today in class is I'm currently exiting from this bead, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to weave through, and I'm going to get myself over here. So again, that's coming down through this side. Get through as many as you can. It may let you go through a bunch. It might be hard to do that. Just see what happens. I'm going to come down through here. And I'm going to get myself down into the row where my 6 are, only because I feel like it's just kind of an easier place to weave around. It's also a really good opportunity to fix something if you see something you want to fix. I spotted something over here that I want to fix in my design. And I'm going to make a little circuitous journey here. I want to come over here and I want to turn on my embellished side. This is loose. For me, this one's loose. I guess I was just not pulling tight enough. Luckily for me, it's only right there. I don't have to weave down very far. But there we go. So now I'm just going to head over. But any path will work for you guys. Just try any path, depending on what side you ended up on. Will all work out really good. Going over here. And I did kind of purposefully end on one of these 8-0s, so I can just follow a step up that's already there and get myself in this spot right here. Okay. So let's start building the same number of rows that we did on the side. I'm going to go a little bit speedy, but please stop me if there's questions. I'm just going to add what we had here, the same number of rows, which I think is about, was it 6 or 8? 7. It's 7 rows for me. All right, here's 2 more. Oops. I think I'd rather work this direction here. One of the cool things about this is it's good for doing an adjustable button loop. Has anyone done that? I'm curious. Sharon, have you done that? An adjustable? I've done it a few times. It's a little bit faster to do in a loom design, but there's absolutely no reason that you couldn't do it here in a herringbone design like this one, where you can have one button loop and then do a few normal. I'm going to show you how to join it just here in a tick. But after you have it joined, you can start another buttonhole above that one, and then you have an adjustable button closure. That's another way for people who sell their work. I know these bracelets can, they take such a long time, and if you don't know what customer is going to want it yet, that's one way to make it so that more than one person could wear it. Look what I just did. Did anybody spot what I did? So you'll get on autopilot and stuff like that will just happen. So I'm going to take my 11 O's off. It's on that inside curve. Just remember not to add your 11 O because you want that to be able for the button to pass through that without bumping into those little beads. I'm almost there. Okay, now I can put my embellishment. So eager to do that before. There we go. I wish so much the colors were coming over. I'm looking up at my screen every so often and then looking at the mat and then looking at my screen. And every time I do that, I'm like, where'd the color go? Wish there was like a, you know, when you're editing your photos, how you can slide into like vivid mode. I want vivid mode for Zoom so I can make it bright like it looks for me in real life. So any Zoom folks out there, let them know. You need vivid color. Okay. And I need one more row. And this one's going to end me in an awkward spot. It's going to end me at the middle. That's okay. We're going to get back to the side. We'll talk about that. Lots of ways to do it. Okay. So there we've got both sides done. And another opportunity to test our button. See, make sure we like it. If you were at this spot and you got here and you're like, you know what, I don't feel like it's going to work. I need another row. You can totally do that now. You can stitch another row here, weave yourself back over here, add another row. All these things are possible. You're not stuck yet. You know, there's always a way. But I still feel like this is going to work out fine. Another thing to point out is that you can get down here, see, a little bit with your button. So there's a lot of room for it to wiggle around. I think that's going to work. So I'm going to go forward to the next step, but this is another opportunity to play with sizing your button and just double check and test. You could even take this if you're ended up where I did. Sometimes you might end up over here, but if you're in the middle like I am, one crazy thought I had just now was you could just bring your thread down and just see, well, what's going to happen if those are connected? Do I still feel like it's big enough? Is it good? And I still feel like it's going to work for me. But if you didn't feel like that, you could add another row now. Okay, so let's take a look back over here. And what I showed here, and it's a little hard to see on the camera here, but what I showed is weaving on all of these. And for this one, I ended up over here naturally. But on this one, I didn't. It's going to be different for everybody based on how many rows you had to make for your button. You're going to end up over here, and over here, over here. So here in the handout, it's kind of obvious what to do. You're where you need to be and you start building a row, right? I'm not in the obvious spot. And so I'm actually kind of excited to be able to show that. I'm not on the edge, I'm in the middle. Easy peasy, just get yourself over there. So let's go down through this next bead here. And come up through the next one. So I'm just weaving over. That's all I'm doing is I'm just making a trip. And I'm going to go down through this bead so I can use my embellishment to turn. See, I'm going down through these two here. I'm going to come up through the embellishment beads and then continue through right up here. All right, so now I'm on the side. And the rest of this is actually super intuitive. You're going to be like, whoa, really? That's all I got to do? Yeah. So we're just going to pick up 2 beads here. Go down. Come up through the next one here. Pick up 2 more. All right. From here, jump over, come up through that one. We're just going to continue like it's a regular row. Don't even worry about the fact that there's a jump there. It won't be tight until after you add the row above, so don't sweat that either. Just kind of help it, just hold it a little bit. Come up through this next bead. I'm going to pick up these 2. And we'll come down here. Okay. I am going to do my embellishment because I'm on the outside. So this is all just kind of naturally will happen for you. You just got in the right direction going there. And there we go. There's that one. Let's add another row. I'm going to flip my work so that I can work from left to right. One more. This part's really fun, by the way. It's just really cool. You're like, I did it. I got to the end. Okay, so if you want symmetry with your embellishment, we have it here on 3 down from the top, right? So you can come over here and go down 1 more. Again, this is totally optional. Only if you even notice it, which honestly nobody's going to notice but you. But if you want to, you can match that up by going down 1 more bead when you do your step up. That's it. That's the whole thing. Reinforce this. Reinforce it like crazy. So what I'm going to do now is, of course, you can add 1 more row if you want to. You totally can. Or you can just go ahead and end it with 2. 2 is usually pretty strong. When you're doing what I'm doing here, I'm just weaving back through this last row. Don't pull too tight or you'll make your beads kind of funny. Oops. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the handout once I get over here and see if there's any extra tips in there that I meant to mention. This is my little memory jogger moment. I did have 1 tip that I mentioned. So if you want to, the last row, you can go back through it and ladder stitch it. And that just makes it look a little bit more like your starting row. It's optional. You don't have to do it, but I'll show it just in case anybody likes the idea. There's also another way that we've done in some of our other classes that does kind of like a 2-stack, but I didn't do that because it was confusing with the embellishment just for this design. But if you know what I'm talking about, the answer is yes, that will work. But here, so from where I am right now, I'm down through this bead here. It's totally okay to, you wouldn't normally do this in herringbone, but if you want to, you can come along, and all this will do is it will connect. See, because with herringbone, these beads aren't connected, right? They're open. If you do this 1 little extra step at the end, it adds a little bit more strength. And the ladder stitching, just like we did at the beginning, we're just making a loop and traveling, making a loop. I'm still not pulling very tight. I'm just kind of medium tensioning this. But this is just ladder. Or big circles. Circly loopy things. Each bead, just like I would pretend you're adding it, just like you're doing a ladder stitch, right? Also, added bonus, it's weaving in my work. Anyone have any questions about the ladder end? Totally optional ending, not required. You guys are easy today. You're not even asking me hard questions. I just got that one button question. The rest of them are pretty good. All easy. Okay. That's pretty much it. So see, it's laddered now. All that top part's connected. Is that coming over fuzzy? Okay, good. That's a good focus there. So yeah, all I did was I just did a ladder stitch through it. And now I'm here. And all I have left to do is weave in. Anywhere that you want to strengthen up your work, anywhere you feel like, you know, I don't like that, this or that. I want to make that stronger, tighter, fix the gap. You've got all this extra thread here. You can add more if you need it. For me, I'm just going to go through a few step ups and then cut my thread. So let's go down here. I feel like that's good. Here's some embellishment. Travel through. And then let's go through those beads there. All right. That's really good. That's strong. Let's trim it. Let's trim right here. Push down, pull up. And the buttonhole is all set. Now, I didn't do any extra testing. I felt like it was good, but I'm going to go ahead and just bring it through and just show it's a pretty snug fit. I went a little snugger. I got brave. It's working. All right. If everyone feels good, I'm going to go and put the buttonhole on this side and get this needle here and use that. Not buttonhole, the actual button. I'm going to attach the button now. So this is my tail thread I'm putting on the needle here. This tail thread here. And it is where we left it. Remember when we started our ladder stitch, we just kind of left it in place here, hanging out from the second bead in. That's where mine's left off for this piece too. So same thing we did with the, when we were doing our demo earlier. It's just hanging out there. Would you guys like me to put the, well, no, I want to put it on here so I can show you closing it, but it's easier to see that one. I wish I'd done that color. All right. So from here, from where we are, I'm going to travel to get myself into this middle spot right here. So right now I'm just off to the side. I'm going to come up through these beads. I went through 3 and that was just whatever beads you end up going through. We're just trying to get where we want to go. So I'm just weaving around. I'm following what is already there in the way of my thread path. Come through this one here. And then I'm gonna bring this over. And so what I'm saying here is that you can adjust this if you like. One of the things to think about with the button, I know I had a really good thing I wanted to remember and not forget to mention here, but if you take a look at the height of where do you want your button to go, you don't have to put it in this exact spot. That's where I'm aiming for, but you may want to put it in a position where the edge of the button touches the bottom of your beadwork. And if you do that, you have a pretty close chance of it actually continuously like looping around and connecting, right? Where there's not a whole lot of air gap. So that's what I did here. And I just mentioned that you can kind of look at, by laying it like this, you can see that it fits. You can even do it flat if that's easier. So basically what I'm seeing here is that I want to put my button, I want to stitch it around this 4th row up, 4th or 5th row. I'm probably going to use a combination of rows just to get it strong. So right about there. So where I am right now, I'm exiting from that 4th row. I'm coming up out of this bead right here. And the only thing I wanted to mention that might be important is if you want to add your button heading in this direction versus heading in that direction, your beads will be pointing that way. Let me bring the sample over, show you that. Oh, it's on actually. So I have to get that on. Okay, so what I did here is my seed beads are exiting, they're heading from this row and out, right? So let me show you on this one. On this one, I'm headed in that direction. I want to be going in that direction. So I'm going to use this thread bridge to make a little turn. You could also just weave over there. So you can either use this thread bridge to turn, or let me show weaving because that's probably even handier. Head over. Like 90% of this is getting where you need to be. Using this little turn here. Okay, so now I'll be heading downward from that row. And it's not a big deal, but it helps a little bit with getting your button to face the right direction. It's still going to work no matter what, but if you want to get your thread heading that way, hope that makes sense. So now I'm heading down from that bead, right? Now let's get some 11s. Let's get 3, size 11. This is totally optional, 3. You can do 2, you can do 4, play with it. I found 3 works really good. So that's what I've been doing on mine. If I'm using size 11. And in case anybody's wondering how I did it on the other one that had 15s, yep, I used the 15s. So whatever your small bead is, you just want to use that under there. And there's my 3 11-0s for this design. Okay. So following my herringbone convention here, I'm coming out of this bead. I'm just going to go through the next one. So we're coming up out of that one. And I'm going down to the next one. From here, we're just going to reinforce. That's all we got to do. But first, I'm going to make sure I like it. This one has a little bit different kind of shank. So let's take a look. Oh, actually. So on this one, it's doing something, it's doing something funny that I don't really love. Let's see what happens if I tighten it. Actually, that's going to be fine. It's just thicker than I was expecting. This button's a lot different than that button. Just because of the way it sits. So it's still going to work. I'm down through this bead here. And what I want to do, I'm going to make a turn. I'm going to use the thread bridge this time because we showed the weaving around way last time. What you can do is you can pick up the thread bridge that's connecting the beads that are next to it, to the one next to it. So that thread bridge there, I went down through the 6-0. And I'm going to come back to the 6-0 and the 8-0 that are here. And also wanted to mention, I didn't used to always do it this way. I used to sometimes just sew the button on like it was a piece of fabric, just going down through the beads, up to the beads. You can do that too. Yeah, if you do it that way, make sure that you catch thread as you're doing those stitch up and stitch downs. But it'll still work just great. More than one way to get it to work out. This is going to be tricky because it's super, super tight and tall. You got it? Okay, so I made sure to get through all 3 of those beads. It was really easy to skip one, so I was just being a little careful. Do this side, let's get through all those. And while I'm here, keep going through my 8-0. There we go. I want it to kind of sit like that. It's pretty tight. Okay, next one's going to be even trickier. I'm going to go down through this 8-0, the one that's in the next row, grab the thread bridge that's above the row under it. I missed the thread bridge, sorry guys. And I'm grabbing the one that's in that adjacent bead a row or below it, right? And then come up. And you'll know if you didn't catch it because your thread will just come right out of that bead. That's what just happened to me. So if it's tricky to see, you'll still have an error check mode there. And I ended up there. This last loop of reinforcing is going to be tight, really, 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 really tight. So I'm using a little trick. I went through the back of it instead of having to see, instead of trying to come up from here, from the bead, I went behind it. And now it's easier for me to get through that, right? If that makes any sense. So a little trick there, just kind of help you get through. And come through this side. Okay, last trip through. I did this 3 times. You could do 4. I feel like 3 is still good. Again, I'm going to use that trick. It wants to go down here. See, it's going through the back of the bead. It hasn't gone through a bead. I just went through these 3. And it's just sticking through the beadwork. But it's going to be way easier for me to get my thread through that 8/0 from the back. So that's what I'm going to do. And there's my bead. Okay, let's weave it in and let's put it on. I'm getting excited. I have a new bracelet. Whoever can guess how many of these I have gets one. So I might have quite a few. Here, just through weaving in this side. I hope that made sense. I can put a button on this other piece if anyone has questions about that button adding thing, because it's probably the trickier part of the design here. What I'm doing now is just weaving in. But I can certainly demo that again. I got a couple samples in front of me and we've got loads of time. So we can definitely show any stuff again, actually. You want to see?
Danielle, so far, so good.
Yeah. God, you guys are so amazing today. You're not making me work very hard. I'm just playing here.
Chris wanted to know if the thread or the needle size matters if you're using 8, 11, and 15.
I probably used a size 12 when I made that other one. It only matters if you can't get through the bead. You can just sit and play. Like sometimes, I mean, I know a lot of us in seed beading and mitt to doing, we'll sit down and whatever bead's stuck through our mat, that's the one we try first, right? We might even remember what size it is. It's just, it's there. And I switch if it's not working. If it's tight, if it's hard to pull through, then I'll go digging through my stash and I'll find myself a smaller needle. But I do think that if you're working with a Czech 15/0, which honestly I don't think I have any Czech 15s. Do I have any? Gosh, they are going to be smaller than like a Japanese 15. I don't have any trouble getting a size 10 through my 15/0 Japanese, but I probably still used a 12 for this because multiple passes. Could I have used a 10? Maybe, I don't know. Possibly, but yeah, those are probably Japanese 15s there on the side. And this one, you guys will notice it's not the same design. It's got something extra. It has an odd number of columns. And I just noticed that. I did that 1, 2, 3. It's got 5. So I abandoned my center column and still built 2. So there's something else you can do if you really want to have a center point. I'd completely forgotten that. And also I embellished the inside of this one. I was only able to do that because it had this missing gap here, right? So 5 columns. This is 4 columns. This one had 5 columns. And what I did is abandoned the middle column for a bit. Tricky thing up here. When you go to join it, you're missing a column. How you do that is when you start this row, you go 1 row, 2 row, string 2 beads, finish 2, finish 2, come back, finish 2, finish 2, and then work 2 new beads into those ones you just strung and make a little ladder trip, just that one time. And then continue that row, build the next row, and you'll get it. But that's a more advanced, but you can see how I did a little ladder there. I did that on the trip back. On the trip over, I just strung 2 beads, ding, ding, and went. come back 2, 2, and then make it into what you want, that shape, and then keep going. That's how you do it in peyote too, in case no one's interested. We can do a peyote one someday. The peyote you always end up skipping, right? Because it doesn't have the ability to do what herringbone can in this configuration anyway. Okay, so moment of truth here. I'm doing my weaving in. I'm going to trim and I'm going to put it on. So let's see. Get nervous, get nervous. Hope it fits. No matter how many times I test it, I still get afraid.
Drum roll, ta-da!
And guess what? The gap is like really small. Look, it's like super, super, super small. This one was a tight landing. Like I was a little more generous with the button on this one. You can see, let me try to get this one on. This one has a much more, there's more play here, but you get the little gap. This one, there's like no gap. Well, there's a little bit of gap. I lied. But yeah.
Well done, Danielle. Much applause in the sidebar for you.
Yay. You guys want to know these colors if you like it, if you're loving this?
2 things, Danielle. Yes,
Yeah.
they are dying to know the greens that you used.
In this?
When you started using the green that's on the tray. Yep.
Yeah.
And Cindy would like to stump the champion. Is
All
there
right,
such
go
a
for it.
thing as odd count herringbone?
Yes, we have taught it. The blue point earrings. Those are odd count herringbone. I also have a cuff like this. I have a tutorial for that. Also available. I can point you to that. If you look up on my website, if you look up chakra band, it's on there. And I can teach it. You guys want to do one? We could do one. I'm still working on the next 2 for May. So we could do that. It'd be an advanced seed beading one, but I don't know. I don't really think it's that hard. It's not. It's kind of like you're just pulling the tension right on one side, and that's it. Because the way it works is when you get to the side that only has 1, but you need to add 2 beads. Instead of adding 2 beads, you add 1, and you go down to the bead below, and you do a little turn. And it actually stitches up really beautifully. I wish I had a sample in front of me to show you, because I do a lot of them like that, and I can't remember where they are.
Yes, Cindy's basically saying she's all in for new and harder stitches.
Is that Cindy Knighton? Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, Cindy, I'll send you a bunch of links later. You're gonna love these. They're old. They're ones I did a long time ago, but they're so fun. So like, I think we could redo it. It's been a while, right? We could definitely, we'll do a class. Yeah, okay. So now I just need one more idea for May, if anyone wants to send me one. I had an idea, actually. I had one idea. I was gonna do, okay, so our very first class we ever did for Michael's, we did a flat spiral rope. And we did all the seed beads. We had 6-0 as the big bead, 8-0 as the connector, 11-0 as the spiral arms. I want to do one of those, but a double. So we'd make a single and then connect a double to it. That's one idea. If you like it, let me know. But I think it would be fun. And then we get a chance to redo one of my favorite projects that we were just talking before when we came in. The camera, I mean, it got a lot better from the good old days. My first few classes with Michael's, the camera was so hard to see. And so some of that amazing content was just lost to the camera. So I think we should revisit those again. It'd be kind of fun. All right, so colors. I'm getting all distracted with ideas. The colors I have on the mat now for this one. This is like Earth Tones Beautifulness. I used the gold metallic, 11-0. It's this one. On this one I used, it just says green. What this really is, guys, it's a frosted matte. It's a frosted matte green. It has a sister color in purple and a frosted matte purple that is also in the planogram at Michael's. These are the ones that are in store. Everything here is in store. So these 2, and then all these colors. So starting with the lighter one, this one is called Crystal Gold. It has gold as the lining. You know, a lot of beads are silver lined. This one is gold lined. So gold lined crystal. Again, it's on the wall at the Michael star. And then from there, I went on to this amethyst color. This is a transparent amethyst. Plain old transparent. And I'll post this, so you don't have to memorize it, but I'll just show you real quick. So this one is topaz. again, this is a silver lined topaz. And then it goes into this beautiful turquoise luster. And then from turquoise luster, it goes into this color, which is the lavender. It just says purple on it, but really what it is to me, to my eye, is a lavender purple. And you can't see it on the camera, of course, but what's coming over here is AB finish on it. It has an AB luster. So it's got like a rainbowy, reflecty thing going on. And all I did was started with this one, built up to that color, built back down. And then I just kept going. And there's that.
Danielle, that's just a gorgeous color palette. It's
I'm in
really
love with
beautiful.
This one I might mail it up to Toronto, but then I might just keep it. I can always make another one. I'll send it. But it's really fun.
Danielle, if you want to help the group out, maybe just take a picture of all the seed beads with their name showing and just post it in our Facebook group so that they can see.
Oh yeah, no, I'll do a PDF
grouping.
for you guys with a
Perfect.
glamour shot of this one so you can really see it, because it's like you can't see it. So I'll do a glamour photo just right after class and I'll post it, and I'll put all of these. I've been putting hyperlinks in the PDFs right now. If you are having trouble finding something, please don't be afraid to message me. Sometimes the SKUs, for some reason, they work sometimes and sometimes they don't. If you can't find it, message me. I'll send you a direct link. It's all there. It's just for some reason, some of the SKUs, like when you click the direct link, the SKU will be the correct number. So I'm using the right numbers, but for some reason they just typed in a search aren't just for the moment coming up as easily as they usually do. So you guys know where to find me. I'm at Danielle Wicks Jewelry, and since we're not on a live one right now, I can tell you guys my email. It's danielle.wicks@johnbead.com. So you can find me there too. Feel free to message me anytime. I usually respond within a day or two. I'm pretty quick about it. But yeah, so
Danielle, you're so great for time today.
I'm good, yeah.
I guess we just need to remind everyone we're taking a wee break because we have a convention that you're going to, and then you have a class you're really excited, a two-parter coming up.
Yep, I'm excited about this one, guys. This is so cool. We're gonna do a bunch of tiles. So I made a bunch of patterns. You can already get them on the website and download them. Oh, thanks, Felicia. And these aren't all of them. There's dozens. These are the ones I stitched up so far. I've got some here ready for samples. There's like a rose, it's kind of hidden in the thread there. Mario flowers. This one's for, I'm going to demo some earrings. We're going to demo how to make both reading the pattern, creating the piece from the pattern. We're going to talk about colors. Then we're going to make a little findings in part 2. And in part 2, also, we're going to join it and do another button closure. This is a different style. But on this design, you have this beautiful edge to work with that you can just build right off. So we're going to teach that in part 2. And versatile, because you can use it on other designs, not just this one. Crystals are joining that. And there's going to be more than just this pattern. The ones you can download now are there. I have a bunch more in work that I'll probably drop in the chat like we usually do. Once I get them all written up, I'm still playing with colors, so they're not totally done yet, but they will be by the time we go to class. So it's a two-parter. It starts it's in April. It's not the 1st April, but the 2nd April. So 2nd Friday in April, sorry. And then the Friday after that will be these two. And then we got the gemstone class, which is gold and amazonite and crystal all together in an earring and bracelet design that came out really pretty. It's just really fun. This is a stitch up. It's made of Wildfire, but there's some wire work and even some glue work with a special finding that I just discovered. I think it's one that's been out a while, but it's new to me, and I had such a good time with it that I thought I would feature it in something because it's really neat. And I have the first 2 classes of May done. I haven't checked this morning to see if they're on Michael's website yet, but I can show you guys. The first one is an earrings party. And here's 2 of the earrings. The other ones I'm wearing. I'm going to take off one so I can show you. This is a faux threader. So one chain hangs behind your ear and one chain hangs in front. And that's a really cool, super easy. This is beginner wire, but trending concepts that are quick for sellers. So if you sell your work You guys, these are like, so they're on trend, the shoulder duster, pearl, and chain. If you did only those 3 things this summer, you're gonna sell like hotcakes. People are going crazy for these. I wore these to the grocery store the other day, got stopped twice. And I was picking up my kids, and the crossing guard at the crosswalk stopped me and asked about these. So these are they're simple. They don't look like much, but oh man, they're gonna be fun. They're gonna be good. And then I also have a gemstone bracelet that I realized isn't here in front of me, but it's probably gonna be on the website in a couple days. And then the other ones I'm still working on. So yeah, so odd count herringbone, yes, we'll do that. And then maybe that spiral double. I think those are going to be the ones. You guys are first to hear it. They don't exist yet. They will soon. And so we're getting ready to travel. So I'm going to miss seeing you guys on the next Fridays, but we'll be back in April. And yeah, thank you so much for saying you love the new item. I had a good time. I had an earring party, and that's actually what we call the class, earring party. So I think it's if it's not up yet, it'll be up in a few days. So just keep an eye on the website. Yeah, so if there's no more questions for me, I'll let you guys go. And you know where to find me if you have questions. So I want to wish you a great weekend and happy beading. And lots of love to you guys. Have a great weekend.